Hello everyone and welcome to JB's Total Gaming, where today I'm covering the closed beta for Gwent, the Witcher card game. This is an improvement of the card game that was in The Witcher 3. I played quite a bit of. If you go back and watch my playthrough of the Blood and Wine expansion, about the only things I cut out were traveling time and me playing this game. I did show a little bit of it, but basically I figured people didn't want to see hours and hours of it. So let's go ahead and talk about the monetization of the game first, because that's something that I think is pretty important, and we will go to the shop and we'll talk about how the game is actually played. Now, I do have to say at first glance this isn't one of the most generous games out there. There aren't daily quests like you would think of, but there are tiered things for winning rounds, like for winning 6 rounds, winning 12 rounds, and if you play the game quite a bit on any given day, there are quite a few rewards. Now, I do want to point out there is a single-player campaign that's supposed to be coming to this game when it launches, but it is not in the beta right now, so don't make your judgments entirely on the game just based on the multiplayer. So here we have the two types of currency. We have ore, 100 of which buys a pack, which in this game is a barrel, and we have scraps, which you can get. And one of the ways that you'll get them, you can deconstruct cards in order to get scraps in order to build new cards, and also at the end of every game, you can send good game to your opponent, they can send good game to you. If they do, then you get 5 scraps, which is cool, and pretty much almost every game, except for maybe 1 or 2 times, my opponent has done that. So let's go ahead and buy one of these and show off one of the unique things about the game. Let's go and open it right now, see the cool animation with the troll here, how this works, and talk about why I do like the packs in this game. So we're going to go ahead and look at these 4 cards. Alright, so nice. I do play on Crate a lot, and I can't remember if I have a full 3 cards of that in my deck or just 2. So I might want to add that, because I do play a deck based around having characters that take damage, and then the cards that basically double the power of characters that have taken damage. But this is the interesting thing. When you get to the last card, you get to choose which card you want out of 3. So maybe if you want a certain faction card, like on Crate, maybe there's, you know, a very high rarity card, which is cool, or a specific card you want. So we can go ahead and check this out. Let's see here. Now, I don't own any of these. Whenever it's weakened but not destroyed, create an instant of it from your deck. You know what? Since I play on Crate a lot, let's go ahead and pick that card. So there we go. We've talked about the monetization. It's not necessarily fantastic, and, you know, much like Hearthstone, it is over $1 per pack in order to buy or crates, or whatever you want to call them, barrels, whatever they are. But if you do play quite a bit in a day, you do end up getting rewards, and you also tend to get the 5 scraps. So let's go ahead and jump into how the game is actually played.
Alright, when you are playing Gwent, one of the first things you're going to do, actually the first thing you're going to do, is redraw up to 3 cards. You don't have to redraw 3, and if you redraw a card, you don't like the card you got, you can redraw that card again. So there is a little bit of strategy to that component of the game. Maybe you have a deck that relies on certain cards, maybe you don't, but it is a pretty important decision. Now, unlike Gwent on The Witcher, Witcher 3, you do get more cards during the game. You get 2 cards after the second round. If you make it to the third round, then each player gets 1 additional card. So, what are you trying to do if you're not familiar with the original Gwent game? Basically, you're trying to have the highest score in 2 rounds. So at most, the game will go 3 rounds. Now, you accomplish that by playing minions like you would expect, using your hero power. Your hero power, if you look at my cards at the bottom of the screen, is to just to the left of my cards. It's played almost like a card you get to play once per game. And there are things like signs and potions, which, if you're familiar with the Witcher world, would make sense. Basically different effects that you can do. Now, here's what's kind of cool about this game, well, at least one of the many things, is that each player is a faction like you might expect, and those factions and your leaders do have these special abilities, and using them effectively with your deck is part of the strategy. Now, when building a deck, and this is a really interesting thing, you have less cards probably than you do in some games, and you can focus on all kinds of things, drawing cards, whatnot, but there are all kinds of unique things with the cards. Like, for example, that golden card, Geralt, that I just played. If I were to play Scorch, Geralt isn't included. Basically, gold cards can't be affected positively or negatively by other cards for the most part. So normally, Scorch would kill the highest power card on the board, but if Geralt was the highest power card at 12, you don't need to worry about that card being killed, nor can you kill an opponent. However, you also cannot buff that character, which is an interesting little thing. So basically that sounds pretty simple. Just get the highest score overall at the end of 2 different rounds. But there is quite a bit of strategy to it. Knowing when to pass is a super important thing. There are going to be times where you're far enough ahead that you want to pass and let your opponent play cards if they want to, because if you play I don't know what this is. So if you pass and then your opponent doesn't want to spend all the cards in order to get ahead on that round. Now obviously if they've already lost a round, they're going to play cards no matter what. But if they're in a situation where they can lose a round and you're far enough ahead and you pass, your opponent may pass. So basically, whatever they do, it's a bad situation for them. They either lose the round or have to play several cards in order to catch up with you, which puts you at a card advantage. Now, if you play a card, though, and your opponent chooses to pass right away, well, then you've just hurt yourself. You've lost a card because basically there's no mana or anything in this game. It's all about using your cards wisely. It's all about hand management. So passing at the right time can be super important. Even giving up on a round at the right time is something you definitely want to bear in mind. Now, the deck I'm playing is based around, mainly, the big thing I want to do is have damaged cards on my side. So the one guy I have in my hand, on the right side of my hand, he will take 1 damage when I play him. My hero ability also plays that same card basically that takes 1 damage immediately, and that's a nice thing because there are cards in my deck that then double all of the damaged characters on my side of the board, which is fantastic. However, I don't have any of those cards right now, so I'll go ahead and pass the turn right here. So the reason I'm passing the turn is because I'm not in a really good situation. It's round 1. Probably not going to be able to resurrect any good cards with my characters that resurrect a bronze level card. So there is bronze, silver, and gold. And without having any cards that allow me to do the double thing, playing that card that's going to take damage or using my hero ability doesn't do me a lot of good. So I was really hoping to get that double damage card ability, and I didn't draw it. So at this point, I'm going to have to try to do my best in order to see what I can do. So all the cards that went out last round went in to my graveyard, and I can play any of the bronze cards that are in my graveyard, and this one gets 3 more power every time it's resurrected. So that comes in handy. So it's a 10 value card, so that's pretty good, plus a 2 value for that character. Now my opponent's getting a lot of stuff out, and it'd be really nice to have the card that does damage to up to 5 non-gold cards in my hand on your opponent's side of the board, and I don't really have that. So here I'm buffing up my lowest value card, both to help keep it alive, and because I don't want to buff up my highest value card because it makes it vulnerable to Scorch. I don't know if my opponent has Scorch, but seeing as it is a neutral card, they may very well have it. Now at this point, I don't really want to resurrect a card if I don't have to, and I'm playing that card just to play something out on the board to get back into the lead, because I have to win this round. I'm already down a round, so I've got to do whatever I can to try and succeed. So even though I'm playing non-optimally, I know I have to win this round, so I'm still a little bit ahead at this point. However, of course, then I just played that some behind. But even if I was ahead, I'm obviously not going to concede because my opponent still has 2 cards in hand. They have used their hero ability, however. So here we're going to try to remember what we're looking at here. Oh yeah, I was just looking at my graveyard to see what I can resurrect. So this is the only card I can resurrect. It's not really fantastic for me because I don't have a way of damaging opponent cards. So if I had that card that does 5 damage to everyone on that side, that would be, or 5 up to 5 non-gold cards on that side, but that'd be fantastic, but I don't have it, so I haven't been super lucky with the card draw. So what I'm going to do is, I had 3 cards in the top and bottom row. Now the most cards I have in a row is 3, so I'm going to play that I think I can buff up to 5 cards by 4 value, but I'm going to play it and just hope that my opponent can't really do all that much. So they're definitely ahead. So I have to use my hero power now, which brings out 2 cards and puts me ahead. We go to the final round. The final countdown, it's basically who draws the best card, and we'll see what happens here. But overall, I do want to recommend at least trying out the beta for Gwent if you want to try to get into it. You can search for Gwent closed beta. It's not hard to sign up for, and it seems like a lot of people that sign up do get in unless they've reached like a player max or whatever. But overall, this is a game that I wasn't as excited about as say Feria or something like that. And right there you saw that I drew a pretty powerful card, more powerful than what my opponent drew, and I was able to win. And here's this where you can send good game to each other to get 5 scraps. But I think Gwent is one of those games that's pretty simple overall and easy to learn. However, there is more complexity than you think. So thanks a lot for watching, everybody, and we will talk to you guys again soon.